Welcome back. Well, it's definitely cautious trade. We have the mid-cap index, which is down around 2.7% at this point in time. Just want to point out that the entire Nifty PSU Bank index is also seeing quite a decline. And why this stands out is that because it is one of the best index movers this year, it's up around 55%. But this week itself, at current reckoning, it's lost around 9% in today's trading session. That particular index is down around 4.5%. But remember that it is a lot about COVID-19 and basically a lot of stocks which are in focus on account of that. So I just want to recap, and we did this last evening as well, just want to recap that there are a couple of COVID-19 related stocks as of now, which in the past had come up. Now, for example, Wockhardt, because they did have the contract with regards to the supplies of AstraZeneca's COVID vaccine to the UK government. We do have vaccine-related stocks which continue to be in focus. For example, Dr. Reddy's, Zydus Life, Biocon. Biocon has a tie-up with Serum eventually in terms of the vaccine portfolio, and COVID was expected to be a part of that. Pfizer on hopes of maybe their vaccine eventually coming to India. Separately, Divi's Labs, remember they are the supplier of the Molnupiravir API, so that stock continues to be in focus on account of that. Cipla and Zydus Life, because they had one of the largest portfolio of COVID-19 related drugs in India at the height of COVID-19. COVID-19 drug-related stocks again include the likes of Gland Pharma as well as Alembic. Alembic because they simply manufacture, they were one of the largest manufacturers of azithromycin, the antibiotic, which had seen a huge volume spurt, and that's the simple reason why that particular stock could be in focus. Diagnostic stocks, we've been pointing out ad nauseum through the week, Dr. Lal's, Thyrocare, Metropolis. And I just want to point out that a lot of these companies already saw dwindling opportunities from COVID-19. Divi's Labs saw a slowdown with regards to COVID-19 related projects. Wockhardt's UK revenue had fallen quite considerably. Cipla, their demand was negligible by the end of it. And we had Gland Pharma as well, which saw an absence of COVID-related drugs in Q2, which impacted their sales. It was down around 3% odd. Diagnostic stocks, COVID-19 testing fell anywhere between 80 to even 97% on a year-on-year basis. Experts say we are much more resilient this time. We have hybrid immunity, and there is a large amount of the adult population which has already been vaccinated. But let's see how things eventually play out in this particular current wave. We have Nithya Balasubramanian, who is the director at Sanford Bernstein, joining in. Nithya, hi, welcome to the show. Well, you look at a whole host of different things when it comes to pharmaceuticals and healthcare. I'm sure you've been reading a lot of data with regards to COVID-19, so I want to start that conversation with this topic. Do you think that it's going to be a concern and maybe an opportunity for pharma health companies this time?
Honestly, Ekta, it's way too soon to say. I have seen no data. I have not been able to grab my hands on any reliable data either from China or from elsewhere, right? So what we're picking up now is more anecdotal evidence, and I wouldn't jump just based on anecdotal evidence. It does seem to be picking up steam. Unfortunately, the number of cases do seem to be on the rise in China. But remember, China is a very different economy. Vaccination coverage is much lower than India, even the infection rate, and therefore I would assume the infection conferred immunity in the China population is possibly less than what we have in the Indian population. So I won't jump right now.
Well, couldn't agree more. There is a lot of anecdotal data, but Nithya, the collective intelligence of the street believes that there may be something to it, and I say that purely on account of the way these stocks are moving. Do you think they too are, moving ahead of what actually the reality is and what the expectations are of the way this is going? I mean, is it just trading activity because it's the year-end, low volumes, etc., or there could be some case at some point?
That's my read as well. I think everybody is just assuming that there might be something to it. But I think before we see some data, I wouldn't read too much into what is actually right now only anecdotal evidence.
Okay. But do you think companies such as Divi's, which did see those windfall gains at one point in time because of the Molnupiravir API opportunity, do you think that kind of heady return or those kind of heady gains could come back? Or are we talking about a more subdued scenario?
I would assume more subdued, right? And China, of course, is a different geography and infection rates could be high, but China as an opportunity was never really available for our Indian generic players. So, what you're essentially talking about is whatever they could possibly sell in India if cases are on the rise. And we also have licenses, companies like Cipla, Dr. Reddy's, etc., also have license to sell in various emerging markets. Right? So that's the opportunity set we're talking about. For Divi's, of course, given that they're supporting Divi's and I think Loris as well, given that they're supporting some key starting materials for some oral tablets, maybe the opportunity size is a little larger, but definitely lesser than what we possibly saw in FY22.
Right. And, in that case, then among all the other pharmaceutical stocks which are buzzing around on hopes that there could be some more business coming their way, etc., just the way it did back in 2020, the first wave and the second wave in 2021, is there any stock in particular or any company in particular where fundamentals are turning around and, that is something one should look at as against, look at to separate the wheat from the chaff, so to say?
No, I agree with you. I think for us, our top picks are actually Sun, Cipla, and we like Gland as well. We think Sun is actually moving away from the pack given their exposure to US specialty, which seems to be doing well, and we think there continues to be runway. Cipla, again, is moving away from the pack because of their complex generics pipeline in the US. We do see several material opportunities likely to play out in the next couple of years. Gland has corrected quite a bit. We think the market is right now unwilling to appreciate the resilience in the business model. While the injectables market is becoming more and more competitive, their B2B business actually affords them a few luxuries, slightly lesser price erosion, their ability to grow the base, which is not now appreciated by the market. So we like these three names, and we think structurally the story is actually very different from what we have seen in the last 10 years for these names.
It's interesting, Nithya, that you brought up Sun Pharma, because one of the key concerns has been the import alert on Halol. No one was really expecting that, and it's been a tough year when it comes to Indian pharmaceuticals and the US FDA. But in particular for Sun Pharma, do you think that the import alert could really be a spanner in the works?
Yeah, I think if you actually look at earnings and the earnings growth trajectory, I don't think the Halol import alert, or now that it's been de-escalated to a warning letter, I don't think it'll have a meaningful impact on earnings growth. Because for Sun, over a period of time, I think the US generics part of the business, ex-Taro, of course, keeping Taro aside, it has actually become a much smaller part of what they do. And even if you look at where they're investing, where the management bandwidth is going, capital allocation, etc., a lot of it is actually going towards specialty, which is what is driving the stock and what is the controversy on the name, right? Possibly the reason why the stock actually didn't correct much on the day that the import alert came through. It actually corrected 3.5%, if I'm not wrong. So earnings impact, I think, is minimal, which is why the stock has been resilient. But that being said, it is concerning that one of the largest pharmaceutical companies, one of the largest in terms of market cap as well, ended up getting an import alert from the FDA. I'm sure they're trying to address and trying to do everything that they can to make sure that this eventually becomes compliant. Towards that end, the de-escalation obviously is a positive signal.
Do you track the diagnostics space, Nithya? Your thoughts on that? I mean, the last couple of days, they've been a buzz again for the same reason that you and I just spoke about. But apart from that, after the correction that we've seen, almost 40-50% from the start of this year, does it make a case to look at all these diagnostic companies for all the non-COVID businesses that they do?
I'm so sorry, I don't really cover any of these names, so I won't be able to give you any specific comments. But I think just like Divi's or Loris or a lot of other companies, they did have a lot of COVID in the base. So I think some of the correction was obviously warranted. Beyond that, I think when I look at it more from an industry perspective, I do believe there is still significant underpenetration when it comes to diagnostics. Diagnostics is even more underpenetrated than pharma, right? So even if you believe that there is growth runway, even up to the tier 4 or the tier 5 towns that pharma has already penetrated into, there is still a meaningful growth runway left for these names.
Okay, all right, Nithya, we're going to wrap it up on that note. Always a pleasure hearing your views. Thank you very much for joining in, and wish you a Merry Christmas and Happy New Year as well. Thanks very much for taking the time out.
Thank you for having me. Bye.
Need to take a short break, but on the other side, we will be talking to the management of Wonderla Holidays Join in for a business momentum check. Stay tuned.